Shelley Foyle. I'm also in agreement with that. But let's take it out the box, okay? Why don't we, sometimes city councils say they go and have community meetings. Let's make it a real community meeting when the weather permits. If there's a abandoned house complaint, set up a table, folding table with your police, security, and hold a meeting right there in the neighborhood. Guarantee you'll get a lot of people coming to the meeting. Let's go to the house where they say there's a dope house there. It's a flagrant problem. Let's go to the abandoned property where the landlord won't take care of it. Hold a meeting there. Guarantee you that we will get a better response. I guarantee you a landlord will fix that property up. I guarantee you the dope dealer will move. So let's think out the box sometime. Thank you.
John Bennett. That's a very good question. It goes to the matter of accountability. I think it's important to hold your council members accountable. And at a time like this, everybody's going to show up and say the right things and give you the right words. But at the end of the day, what are they going to do after they get elected? You know, I think we need to ask questions as it relates to, are you willing to give up your car so you can have an office in the neighborhood? You know, how many are willing to do that? I think it's more important for the council members to direct their budget to areas that are more important, like having an office in the neighborhood, instead of having staff members that you don't need, or cars that you don't need, and things of that nature. So I am willing to have an office on the east side and the west side, if you know, of course, if my budget will allow me to do that. But I don't need a city car. You know, I can drive my own car. So we need to make sure that we ask the necessary, because I look at this as a voter and a candidate, and I want to make sure that as a voter that I hold my council members accountable and I remember what they tell me. So let's make sure that we ask, are you willing to give up some things like your vehicle if it means you can have an office in the neighborhood where I live? Thank you.
First off, I have a different perspective on this question as an incumbent, because the fact of the matter is I have been going out to community groups, and I've been doing it ever since I've been on council, and I do it in a non-election year. It's standard operating procedure for me. It always has been, and my belief is that when you're elected by the people, you need to be accountable to the people who've elected you, and you need to be available to them, and you can't do that if you're just sitting in your office all the time. So on a regular basis, every single week, I visit block clubs, I visit senior citizen buildings, deacon boards at churches, just to share information with them, to be available. I also designate certain members of my staff to do the same thing throughout the city, because we represent the entire city, and it's a big city. You can't cover it all by yourself. So I will continue to do that. It's what I've always been doing. I also am open to the idea of setting up office hours within the neighborhood city halls as well. However, it's important to remember that there are some limitations with that. First off, the neighborhood city halls are extensions of the mayor's office. I think a lot of people don't know that. So, and they're extensions of the mayor's office. They are run and staffed exclusively by the mayor's staff members. So that's a key point, because that puts a constriction on what council can do within those offices. And the other thing also is that they're only open till about 4 or 5 o'clock. And while it may be great to have office hours during Monday through Friday, not every citizen can get there during those time periods because they work, which is why, as I said earlier, it's important to also attend the block club meetings, the neighborhood association meetings, etc., etc., so you can get to people when they're available to see you. Thanks.
Okay. President Cockrell, you can hold on to the microphone.
Okay. Ken Cockrell Jr.
Ken Cockrell. The next question up kind of piggybacks on what happened here Tuesday at the Charter Forum. The question is, if the proposed charter changes to districts go through, do you feel the changes will positively or negatively affect the city?
I think it's ultimately going to depend on what kind of council members we elect. Districts are not going to be a magic bullet or solution that's going to solve what ails the city of Detroit. And at the end of the day, it's like I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you elect a clown on an at-large basis, you're going to get a clown. But that doesn't mean that you can't turn around and elect a clown in a district and get clownish behavior. So at the end of the day, it's not so much about how we elect citizens, or rather our elected officials. It's about who we elect. So we got to keep that in mind. We have to scrutinize and investigate these candidates closely. However, I do support districts. I think they will be good for the city, and I think districts will accomplish a couple of things. Number one is I think districts will make city council seats far more attainable for the grassroots candidate. When you represent the entire city and when you try to run a city council race citywide, that is an expensive proposition. Because even though the city has lost population, it is still a big city. To run for city council in the city, it's almost the equivalent of running for 2 congressional seats at the same time. There's a lot of ground to cover, and the average citizen or the average candidate isn't able to raise the money to mount a credible challenge to get elected. If you go to districts, you automatically reduce several times the amount of money a person has to raise and spend in order to get elected. And I think that'll be good for the candidates that don't have a whole lot of money. The other thing that districts will do is that they will foster communication and accountability. And I know this because when I was a county commissioner, I represented the southwest part of the city of Detroit. The people in that district knew that they could come to me, and I had to take care of them, because if I didn't take care of them, they knew that it would be far easier for them to elect somebody else, take me out, and replace me with that person. So those are 2 benefits of districts, and for that reason I do support it and think it will ultimately be good for the city. But again, the key thing is we have to make sure, regardless of how you elect, that we put good people in office.
Let me get that chair for you. Can you repeat that, Lee?
Sure. The question is, if the proposed charter changes, that is to districts, goes through, do you feel the changes will positively or negatively affect the city?
I think it will positively affect the city. Again, it goes to a question of accountability. And on my block, we have at last 15 vacant houses. As I drive away from my house at night, I see numerous street lights that are out, mattresses on the sidewalk, couches in some places, holes in the street. There are any number of things going on in the neighborhood where I live. There are no council people who live in the neighborhood where I live. They don't see what I see. If I had a council person on my block or in my neighborhood, I could go knock on their door and tell them we need the street light on, we need the hole at the corner filled, we need to find out why this house is not boarded up. So certainly, council people in districts would be, for me, it would be extremely positive for my neighborhood and for the people who live in the neighborhood. So I think it would be a good thing, absolutely. John Bennett.
Shelley Foy, Shelley I. Foy. I believe in districts because you can't represent something you don't take ownership of. Also, I like to state, I had $9,146 for my primary campaign, and I've made it to this point. None of the funds were taken from anyone. It was from my personal funds and from fundraisers. As a teacher, I have to take ownership of my children in my classroom to teach them. As a college professor, I have to take ownership to teach them. We must have ownership. I've been the Black Club president in my neighborhood for almost 10 years. Every time I had a complaint, I had to call every city council staff. Did anyone get this complaint? Then you get, oh no. Finally you get someone sympathetic enough to say, well, let me look into it. You call 311. They give you a number. You call back to check up on your complaint. They give you another number. You go to neighborhood city hall. They call 311 and get you a number. Yes, I believe in owners, on council by district.
James Tate, yes, I do believe in council by district because it does provide additional accountability for the city council members. And the way that it does that is because if you're now voted by a district level as opposed to at large, you cannot ignore not one person, not one group. Everyone is important because the pool of voters has decreased for you. But I think that it's also important to keep in mind that if we move to a by district voting system, we're also going to have to amend the charter to allow there to be some additional powers to the city council. Because just alone, you got to remember, city council, they are legislators. They are not the executive branch of the city of Detroit. The mayor's office is in charge of every department. And as it stands, if we move to the district system, the city council members will have people, as we said before, knocking on